Welcome to the WinEH podcast. This show is focused on empowering ranchers. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just getting started, we'll guide you on how to use the infinite banking concept as an alternative way to finance your operations. It's a better way to think about money. Join us as we discuss planning for the future, attracting the next generation, and the art of keeping more money within the family. Here's your hosts, Winnie and Lacey.
Okay, welcome. So glad that you can lean in today. I am joined here with a friend and client, Peter. Peter is here with us today, and I'm so grateful that you're here to share your IBC journey with us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share. I've known you for years and years and years and love what you're doing, and happy to help.
Thank you. So one of the first things that I'd love to ask is, what do you think contributed to your desire to move forward with implementing the infinite banking concept into your life?
A couple factors. One is I'm not really a big fan of the banking system, the traditional banking system, especially with the stuff that they have done in the past and can do in terms of freezing people's bank accounts and doing stuff like that. So that kind of was an aspect that led me to this system. And then also just being educated around it and reading Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and watching videos on YouTube around it, and also talking to you about it and other people, and just realizing that the current system isn't the only system. And it's a pretty flawed system just from what I've understand and read about. So to know that information and to not do anything about it, to me, there's like a dissonance there. So once I knew about a different way, I just want to learn more. And then, talking to you and having you help me set things up really helped.
Mm-hmm. What I gathered from what you just said, basically what kind of inspired it was first like the pain of dealing with the current system that you were participating in, which is just really understanding, like having your money deposited into a regular, banking account, and then having to getting more and more clarity about the insight of maybe it's not altogether safe, but also the terms and conditions are not as great as it could be. And just realizing that when you started learning about the infinite banking concept, you understood that there was definitely an alternative.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. So how long, Peter, do you think did it take you to come to a decision? At what point, how long did it take? And at what point did you feel okay, I'm making an educated decision about this, I can move forward?
I think after reading the book, I was already decided. I'm I want to go this route. I think Nelson just explains things in such a unique way and a simple way.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't take long after reading his book. And then all it took was pretty much just, scheduling time with you and going back and forth a little bit and doing a bit more, research on my own. But I'd say maybe a few weeks, maybe to a month max or something before I was I'm ready to do this.
Yeah. So the book that Peter's referring to is The Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. And for all of you who are listening that are Canadians, just know that you can come to me and I can get you the Canadian version. You don't have to go onto Amazon and pay the prices there, just as a FYI. A couple of weeks ago when we started chatting, you had mentioned that people ought to know about this. If someone's sitting on the fence, what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, information is just so powerful. And there's so much that we don't know, or at least I don't know. And the more I learn about stuff, I'm just the more I feel I don't know a lot. So when it comes to such an important aspect of our lives, which is money and storing our money and handling money, there's so many beliefs around it and ways of doing it that have been unconscious, I think. Mm-hmm. It's banks are where you put your money. Okay, cool. Trust the banks. They're the most trusted organizations. But then you see, the collapse of banks and banks closing, and it's okay, well, what happens to all that money when that happens? Or you learn that, for every dollar you put into a bank, they're able to lend out $10. And it's like, so they're just creating money out of thin air. And you're like, wait, like that's not really ethical, or, it's like how are they able to do that?
But it's legal.
Yeah, it's apparently.
It's like it's the only organization that has permission from lawmakers.
Yeah.
That, okay, yes, you can legally counterfeit.
Right.
Here you go.
So if I print out money for my printer, that's illegal, but then banks can do it on their end, right? So yeah, again, it's just understanding and getting more information around how things actually work. And then once you have that information, then, the decision is up to you, right? If you see things for what it is, as opposed to what society tells you it is, or what preconceived beliefs or programmings you have around that. And, I've had my fair share of it as well. But, personally, once I start to learn more and get educated around different aspects of financial stuff and money stuff, then to me, it's just a no-brainer. It just makes sense that I have control of my finances and I'm able to do what I need to do with it using an instrument like whole life insurance and being able to just have more control over my money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and control, especially as an entrepreneur, that's also something like people ought to really, when they're looking into this, it's like we all come from different walks of life. Like you're either working for somebody as an employee or, you are an entrepreneur. And I think, especially for entrepreneurs who don't have a regular paycheck, sometimes looking into something like this can be a little scarier. But, for you, as an entrepreneur, although you do your best to create your own regular income, but
Sure.
What about the system just sort of made you have faith, like, I can do this, right? Even though I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is the size of the premium that I contribute is like you work with me to help decide what's a good size and what's a good amount so that I can contribute to it without, stretching myself. And then the ability to access that money without any question too. And especially as an entrepreneur, because there isn't a, say, consistent paycheck coming in, if I were to go to a bank and I wanted to take out a loan for something, then it's on the condition of consistent payments, or how are you getting your money? Can you pay that money back? And then there's like all this paperwork and all this stuff that you have to go through. But for me, if there's something came up and I need to access money right away, I can just take a policy loan out, no questions asked, and I can do what I need to do with that money. And as an entrepreneur, I think that's a lot more flexible and a lot more beneficial because you don't have to jump through hoops and get approval from banks.
Yeah, less friction.
Totally. Yeah.
And especially, I think as entrepreneurs too, I mean, it kind of aligns with like our core values, which, I think most of us who are entrepreneurs or business owners, we like that element of control.
Yeah.
Being able to say, like, I can dictate my ceiling, I can dictate my world.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the infinite banking concept really does align with that value.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the things that we left off with previous to this was like, hey man, if you want me to share this, like, especially with the younger people, I want to make sure I tell them this. It wasn't just this, but it was more like, sorry, I'm kind of like leading the path of what you said yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of those tools that, like, the sooner you start, the more benefit you get from it, right? It's like that quote, it's like the best time to plant a tree was like 20 years ago. The second best time is now, right? So if I was younger or speaking to a younger person, again, it's like get educated and get the information you need around how the current system works versus the alternatives, something like this. And then start small, like just get into the process of doing it and like understanding how the system works. You can always expand things later on. It doesn't have to be this huge commitment, but I would think of it as the life insurance part is like almost like a benefit or extra benefit. But like the way I see it, it's another bank account, essentially. It's where I put my money. The cash value grows consistently, which is cool. and then I have access to it. And then like the death benefit is like a bonus aspect. So I wouldn't think of it as like life insurance, because I think maybe to young people that either seems further down the road or boring or doesn't make sense for where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we all have to store our money somewhere, and to have this type of system that we control be a place we store our money, I think it's beneficial. And then as time goes on, like the compounding of that is just, a lot more beneficial the earlier you start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally love what you said there. And thanks for also just offering your own insight there, because I think part of it is like, especially if you're 18, 19, 20, or in your early 20s, just based on sheer age, you haven't had the same life experience as someone who's 30 or 40. And so sometimes it's like hindsight, it can be 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, choose your hard. You can learn the hard way if you want to learn the hard way, and wish when you're in your 30s that you had something to show for it. Or you can be an individual who can learn from other people's life experience and just make things easier on yourself. I mean, life is really great, but life will always throw us curveballs. So, I mean, if you can take what any of us that are in our, 30s and 40s and 50s and take what we have to say into account and then just learn from us, you can spend more time enjoying your life.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I remember learning vaguely about kind of what you did, Winnie, like probably, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 years before I actually started with like IBC and getting a policy.
Yeah.
And like, again, I don't know, I think I maybe just like maybe asked some people or like whatever. I didn't educate myself around what it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
I just came to the conclusion that like, oh, it's not for me or it's not the right time. And it wasn't until like later on that, I spoke to someone else and then I revisited the idea and the concept, and I actually like bought the book and like read into it. I'm like, this is what I want to do, or this is in line with my values. So I could have started like, 3 to 5 years earlier, but I didn't. But it's okay, right? Like, again, you start where you are. And I think the biggest part is just educating yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I 100% agree. I mean, how we get educated is really our own personal journey. You can start with the book, like Peter says. It's also available on Audible. You can listen to it, but getting the physical copy, I mean, it's awesome. Just to be able to have the visuals to go along with what you're listening to. And there's many podcasts like this one to really help get you started. The one last thing I can't really recall if you had regularly worked with an insurance advisor before, so, I mean, you had indicated, if this is the first time you're listening, by now, if you come this far, it has something to do with, it's like the infinite banking concept, and it has something to do with the life insurance contract. So, of course, there's many different avenues in the world of Canada in terms of like who you could talk to. You could go to a bank and there's an insurance advisor there. There's just many different avenues to an insurance advisor. However, Peter, if you could give us some insight from your own perspective, what would you recommend?
Definitely talk to someone who is like in the world of the infinite banking concept world, I guess, right? Because there is an institution that specializes in that. They train professional people on this idea. I think the average insurance person or the person at the bank would not know about this idea, because there's just so much old thinking around it. And so I think definitely go with someone who's authorized IBC practitioner who can really help you based on your unique situation and based on where you're at, and kind of guide you in that sense and set up the right policies. Because I've also heard through different podcasts and YouTube videos and in the book as well, there's different products, there's different insurance products. And if you get set up with the wrong one, thinking that it's going to help you do what you want to do, then that can backfire.
100%. So working with an authorized infinite banking practitioner, I'm definitely one of them. Am I the only one in Canada? No, I'm not. But definitely talk to someone who is experienced and does this full time, not just like a part-time person that's just getting started, or someone who just read the book. It's like, yeah, I know what they're talking about. I can do this for you.
Yeah.
Because this is not a transaction. Would you say that now that I think you're like 1+ years, maybe 2, maybe 1+ for sure.
Yeah.
would you say that it's like really important to like, once you have it implemented, like what has it done for you having like after support?
Yeah, well, I think it's huge to have coaching and support afterwards and building a relationship like with you. Like we meet, very regularly, and I'm able to talk to you about my goals, things that are coming up financially, how to best use my policies, how to best navigate that. And like with anything, I think coaching is a great aspect of learning and getting better at anything, right? Whether it's a sport or whether it's your business or whether it's, through finances. So having you as my coach and being able to chat with you on a regular basis, I think it's been super helpful to make sure I'm doing the right things and on the right track and not falling behind. And also gives me more ease that I have someone in my corner that I can reach out to if or when I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. And I know we've talked about like, this is a really great alternative. This is really a good thing to do. It's good to start it sooner rather than later. Could you speak to like, did you encounter yourself like any challenges that you've had with this?
Yeah, I guess maybe in the beginning, it just took a bit for my head to wrap around how to use it, or like, because I have multiple policies. So just kind of seeing what the relationship is between policy A, B, and C. But for me, I think I just have faith in the process, and like I just had faith in, that I'm doing the right thing. And I knew that with time, everything else would click, or I would get more understanding with time. And I think it has. And again, coaching sessions with you has helped with that. But like anything new, it's just like the beginning is always the hardest part. And it is a new concept, and it's a idea that doesn't get talked about a lot. So there is going to be some like unknowns or some confusion around it. But again, I feel like working with someone who can handhold you, coach you through the process during and after, I think that's super huge, so that you're not just left on your own and then you fall back to old habits.
Yeah, wondering if you did the right thing and then forget why you did this in the first place and then end up canceling the policy.
Exactly. Yeah.
It really does happen. And, I have to say, like, the life insurance industry in a whole, I think, really has a lot to make up for in terms of public trust. So who you deal with really does matter. And once again, unless there's anything else that you'd like to add to your journey about infinite banking, now is the time to sort of pipe up if you have anything else.
Again, I think like what Nelson Nash said is like always be learning, right? Like I watched his like documentary recently again for the second time. I read the book again for the second time recently too, just to like infuse his thoughts and that knowledge into my brain. And yeah, I think that's the only thing. It's like keep learning and don't ever settle for what the status quo is. Like if there's something that you want to learn and figure out, like do it, right? Like we have all the information in the world right now at our fingertips. So I think there's no excuse to not know anything now. So if it's important, if like handling your finances yourself and having control of it is important to you, then learn about it and take the next steps, talk to someone like Winnie and get things started.
Yeah. I 100% appreciate you being 100% present with me in this moment in order to really like deepen someone else's curiosity around IBC, or like, what is this about? And I think the more times that people who are as courageous as you are, because not everyone is willing to get on a podcast and share their journey, because it means like, it's just sometimes really scary to put yourself out there. I mean, the reason why it probably took you a little bit longer is because I was coming out of my shell, coming out of my shell to really talk about it and say, hey, this is something that you should really share. It's like, I was always passionate, but really like the thought of putting yourself out there publicly, we're all in different places. Either some of us are like, hell no, I'm not ever doing that.
Yeah.
But so I know how much it took for me to get to a place where I could have a podcast. And I know for you, it may seem super comfortable, but I really do. I do appreciate you being courageous to share it. So you being able to share it, you just never know how it's going to impact somebody else. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to share and happy that we got to hang out and share space together. And I'm glad I can hopefully influence someone to learn more about it and, decide for themselves whether or not it's a fit.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining today. And to get the book, go onto the website, ranchyourway.com, and get the Power Combo, or just get the Becoming Your Own Banker book. Thank you so very much.
So glad you leaned in with us on the WinEH podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.